TIL adultery is a felony in the state of Michigan, and when a married woman and single man commit adultery, the male is also guilty of a felony. There's a few states that still have alienation of affection laws, but I think out of them only NC really entertains them. Basically, the aggrieved spouse can sue the third party for wrecking their marriage. There's usually a high-profile suit every few years where the spouse is awarded a multi-million settlement. https://abcnews.com/business/the-law/wife wins million husband's alleged mistress/story, ID equals 10151957. It is also a crime for a male to seduce or debauch an unmarried female. http://legislature. Me. Gov/doc. ASPX, MCL 750-532, http://legislature. Me. Gov/doc. ASPX, MCL 750-532. Curious what the statute of limitations is on this here law? Asking for a friend. Long time ago, but a master sergeant in my bomber wing in Michigan was court-martialed for adultery. Funny thing is, he wasn't prosecuted when the adultery was discovered. He was prosecuted when his squadron commander ordered him to never have contact with the woman again, and he violated that order. The civilian woman he was messing with, who was cheating on her deployed husband, and a married crew chief he had also been having sex with, both testified against him at the court-martial as part of a plea deal so they could avoid prosecution by the state and, in the case of the crew chief, the Air Force. Dude got busted down to E2, threw away his career for some S. Adultery is prosecuted to this day under the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. Punishable by up to dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, and confinement for 1 year. I doubt any civilian laws are still enforceable though. What about a married man and a single woman? How can you charge someone for adultery if they didn't know they were married? Is everyone supposed to do background checks on their love interest to make sure they aren't married? When I was in the Marines, a guy in my platoon was punished by the UCMJ for adultery, lost rank and pay, and was basically on house arrest for 45 days. Fun fact, this is not only also the law in the U.S. military under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ, and it is enforced for unit cohesion and morale. You're probably not going to watch the back of the guy you heard is screwing your wife behind your back. If both parties are military, both are punished. Even assuming one party is single, and is the only one in the military, this is still enforced, especially if the other party was a service member's spouse. Considering the ramifications of cheating within a unit, it's reasonable. However, there should be a way to separate cheating from having extramarital sex in a poly or separated, legal, not geographic, marriage in my own opinion. It's also illegal in Michigan for a married woman to have her hair cut without her husband's permission. Swearing in front of women or children was illegal as well. About 20 years ago, a man fell out of his canoe, swore up a storm, and because a woman with her children were in earshot, he was arrested and charged with breaking that law. The court exonerated him eventually and the law was deemed unconstitutional. The reason states don't change these laws is that it requires legislative effort, and if they aren't enforced anyway, it's basically a huge waste of time with absolutely no upside for the legislator attempting it. It could be easily spun into negative campaign fodder for their opponents, either spinning it so they're actually for the thing the law bans, or that they're wasting time and taxpayer money repealing unenforceable laws. Most lawmakers have more important things on their agenda. George Costanza would like a word. What about the other way around, if a married man is with a single woman? Who faces charges? This is not enforced, but, about a decade ago, there was a Michigan man who was prosecuted for using foul language in front of a woman, and children. It was a pretty ridiculous situation. The guy capsized his canoe, and made a scene. The family that witnessed it went full Karen, and had connections in local law enforcement. How would you know the marital status? Deleted. This is like the military but worse. Yeah, my wife didn't get a felony for adultery, but she did go to jail for assault and battery twice, once for attacking me while going through our separation and then against the poor guys she was cheating with. Michigander law student, have never heard of this. Guessing it must be an old abandoned law that's not enforced, and would be struck down very quickly if challenged. If you dig deep enough you can find some weird laws anywhere, e.g. the law in London about handling a salmon in a suspicious manner. You could spend up to 2 years in prison for adultery in South Korea, my home country, until 2015. This went for both members of adultery. In Korea this was enforced, 53,000 people were convicted from 1985 onwards. This does make me think, is this adultery law in Michigan enforceable? Have there been cases where people were charged with a felony for adultery? Let's just make lying to your husband about who got you pregnant a felony and get rid of the antiquated adultery laws. I think adultery should be grounds for divorce without alimony or any other compensation across the board. I couldn't imagine if someone cheated on me then took half my shit. You forgot to add the part where none in the state GAF and it's never enforced and is still sad. It was a felony in CT until the early 90s. It was never enforced, though. Until some lawyer from Westport had his wife not only cheating on him, but flaunting it and publicly ridiculing him over it. So he marched into the state police barracks, no sheriffs in CT, and demanded she be arrested. And so they sort of had to, seeing as they had a lawyer pointing out it was a felony, made the papers, and there was a big outcry. Next session of state legislature, that law came off the books. What about married man and unmarried woman? Still a crime in the military and still heavily enforced. Honestly, it's not some single guy's job to keep everyone else's failing marriage together. In Michigan, a woman also can't get her hair cut without her husband's permission. What if she takes her ring off or says her husband died? Welcome back to the Middle Ages. So wait a minute, what about a married man and an unmarried woman? Deleted. I think I heard something more about this in a tort law class. From Illinois, it's not so much about the adultery itself but the emotional distress it can cause a family. Therein the single person who was involved can be held liable for any damages it may have caused the family if there was any economic loss as a result. X, a family business shuts down for a while, so the single would have to reimburse the lost expected gain. Might be a slightly different and more archaic law in Michigan courts though. My mate suspected her husband was cheating on her in Japan. So she hired a bunch of private detectives to follow him and take secret photos. They found he was fucking a girl from his office, recorded them going to restaurants, hotels, and even a trip abroad. They got all her details, name, age, address, etc. and all the dates and times they met up. Next my mate hired a lawyer. The lawyer drew up a contract for the girl to sign agreeing not to meet the husband again or face steep fines. Then she bought some professional-looking new clothes, high heels, a voice recorder and got her hair and makeup done to intimidate the girl, on the advice of her lawyer. That day she met the girl outside her office and said, "We need to talk. Come with me." She takes the girl to a cafe, lays out all the evidence, tells her to sign the contract and pay $25,000 in compensation or she'll get taken to court and destroyed. The girl signs the contract and pays up after confessing everything while my mate walks away with a recorded confession that is admissible in court for backup. As the girl was signing she said, "It's my birthday tomorrow." My mate says, "I know. That's why we are doing this today, so we don't ruin your birthday."